This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, December the 13th, 2022, episode 413. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest on the video game industry, with a little bit of common sense political commentary sprinkled in here and there. My name is Nick Craig. You can check me out on Twitter, the all brand new Twitter, not verified, at Nicholas M. Craig, and check out my website, nickcraig.com, and of course our website, infectionpodcast.com. And the million-dollar question that everybody is wondering this evening is, Brian with an I Aldridge verified on Twitter? Did he give up the ghost and spend $8 for a verification, Brian?
No, I have not. I have not paid, but hey, I may at some point.
All right.
I might.
Well, there you go.
We'll see. I do like the idea of what it's supporting. First of all, kind of getting it away from advertisers, because look, advertisers skew a lot of times what a company is willing to do or not do, or whether or not, as we've seen lately, stand up for free speech. Or a lot of times people that are woke, right, will pressure advertisers and will make a company do something they generally would not do. And so I think if you can come up with another method to make yourself profitable that doesn't rely on areas that you can be pressured to maybe go against your morals or go against what you're trying to achieve, then, more power to them. And I'm sure they are working out something that's going to be the alternate, for truly verified people that are famous and
absolutely
corporations and organizations. So, hey, if you want to find me, though, you can find me, as you said, at Boise Computer on Twitter, or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, Truth Social, and I'm sure some other places in the future. If you want to go check out my blog, it's biteoftech.com, and of course our website, infectionpodcast.com. And if you go there, first thing I encourage you to do is go join our server on Discord, because perhaps there's a news story you think we're missing, something that you think we should be bringing up in the next show. Just jump into our Discord and toss a link to it in our news channel, and then we'll review it before that next live show starts. And if it's something that's relevant, we'll talk about it. Also, perhaps we're talking about different topics for our Christmas show. You still have maybe a little bit of time if you think there's a topic that you think would be really cool for us to talk and bring up during that show. Do that. Toss a link in there, and we'll check it out. Also, we've got our ARC servers going, 11 different servers that are all going to be running, and I think they're running the Christmas event right now, and there's all connected, linked, and ready to go. So if you want to play some ARC over the holiday, you're more than welcome to do that there. Also, we have a Conan Exile server that's running, and has a lot of different mods for kind of a RP style play, extra building, and different things like that. And it's accelerated. For all of these are accelerated gather rates, so you don't have to sit there and spend 6 months kind of getting to the point where you can get to some of the more fun stuff. If you want to catch our live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube. And if you are wanting to get the audio only form, that's recorded and then uploaded after the fact. So we don't do that live, but there's a lot of different platforms and devices that you can listen to us on, and just pick whichever one is better for you in the lower right hand side. And if you are listening, what you can do is follow along in our show notes, because at that point we'll have uploaded the show notes, and we've got a video and audio player built into that, and then links for every topic that we discussed during the live show. So if there's a video, maybe you're listening and you wanted to see a video that we displayed, just jump in there and we'll have a link to that video. Or maybe there's a source material, you want to get more details on something we were discussing, just jump onto that page, and we should have it all listed there. If you want to support the show, you can do that up top in the support menu, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, very much looking forward to heading towards the Christmas season. Appreciate everybody's support as always, over the last couple of months, and in this case, years. Brian, I forgot to ask you before we started if you would go ahead and refresh for me so that we can.
I figured you might do that. So.
I apologize on that. So let me get started here with the big news of the week, and this surrounds Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. And we've been talking about this for months and months, and months and months and months and months and months, and it is now official that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has sued to block the merger of Activision and Blizzard.
Yeah.
What they're claiming, the FTC alleges in their complaint that the deal would allow Microsoft to, quote, suppress competitors to its Xbox gaming console, its rapidly growing subscription content, and cloud gaming business. So in a 3-to-1 commission
Isn't that the point? Isn't that the point of doing business for profit, is to grow your subscription base, to add content, and to sell more devices or services than your competitors? I mean, I thought that was the point of the whole thing.
I'll note here in the Axios article, the commissioners voted 3-to-1, with Republican Commissioner Christine Wilson voting no to file an administrative complaint blocking the merger. As you stated, Brian, yes, it seems like it is very, yeah. Now, here's the thing.
I mean, it seems to me that that's what you're supposed to do.
Now, you have more insight on this than I do because of you're the elder of the program. I think there's a lot of general anxiety with Microsoft and antitrust because of previous lawsuits and previous actions that the government has taken against Microsoft over Internet Explorer and other things back in the 90s and 2000s, right?
Well, yes, it kind of started more with the phone companies. That was kind of the first time that we saw anything pop up where it's like, oh, we're trying to prevent very large companies from controlling. Now, that for me is something different. That was lines in the ground that went to every person's home that were controlled by one company. That was not a video game console that you can or cannot put in your home if you decide, type of a system. Also, Microsoft, the other one that was their web browser. Internet Explorer, okay, that was the largest operating system that was put on over 50% of the computers, I'm pretty sure. Or OS X was fairly large competitor, but nowhere near the same. And of course, nobody said anything about their web browser that's on every single Apple device that they sold. But hey, with Microsoft, they put it in there. It was built into the operating system. To compromise, they said, all right, we'll give you the option to maybe kind of remove it, or you get a choice when you start up the computer, which, I mean, where in the world do you tell a company that when you sell them a product, they then have to bring up a list of all your competitors so they can pick either your product or your competitor? Not that it was a bad thing, but if you think about what they actually were making them do initially was to bring up a list. Oh, do you want to install our competitor's product, or do you want to install our product? What they really need to do is make it to where it was separate, which it is kind of now. You still have to have it, but it's not even Internet Explorer anymore. It's Chrome.
Yeah.
Edge is Chrome. It's Chromium. And it's not even Internet Explorer anymore. It killed it. So
from my vantage point, to me, there seems to be some general anxiety over Microsoft because of some of these past things that you talk about. According to Holly Vendova, I guess is how, or Vidova, she says she is the director of the FTC's Bureau of Competition. She said in a statement when this was announced that last week, quote, Microsoft has already shown that it can and will withhold content from its gaming rivals. Today, we seek to stop Microsoft from gaining control over a leading independent game studio and using it to harm competition in multiple dynamic and fast-growing gaming markets. We continue to believe that this deal will, that's what they claim there. Brad Smith, who we read that op-ed on last week from the Washington Journal or Wall Street Journal, says, quote, we continue to believe this deal will expand competition, I don't necessarily agree with that, and create more opportunities for gamers, that I agree with, and for game developers. We have been committed since day one to addressing competition concerns, including offering earlier this week proposed concessions to the FTC, which I don't know if I mentioned it on this show, Brian, or on Computers 2K Now, but this is why I was never a fan of Microsoft trying to be like, oh, we're going to do all these great things, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. They have tried to be as open with this. They've offered Nintendo and Sony this 10-year deal. Sony has given them the middle finger.
Sony hasn't even replied.
No.
They haven't even replied to this. They say, hey, we'll sign a 10-year that we guarantee you will get Call of Duty for the next 10 years. Not even a response. Obviously, that would tell me, oh, they don't really want it. That's fine. See, obviously they don't care. They haven't even replied to us offering it to them, so it's not really that big of a deal to them. So why would it hold up this whole process?
Yeah, Nintendo agreed with it, which Nintendo doesn't publish Call of Duty. There's no Nintendo. Everybody was like, oh my God, does that mean that the new Call of Duty's coming to the Switch? I'm like, no, it just means in the future, if there is a game that Microsoft wants to expand to the Switch, it will come out at the same time. I really didn't think this was going to happen. I really had, and shame on me for assuming that the Federal Trade Commission would not move forward with this. I'm not sure how strong of a case Microsoft is going to have, and Brian, I don't want to be a doomsdayer, but what if they are successful? Like, what if they don't? Yeah. Now, typically the way this will work is they'll come to some sort of concession and then the deal will happen. But what if they don't? Like, what about all this work that's been done to essentially blend these two companies together at this point? Would you can't just break all of that? But I don't know how this is going to work. Again, the goal with this is to get a concession. That's what the FTC is looking for. And that's what they'll get. It's not like with the antitrust over Internet Explorer, it's not like they shut down Microsoft or shut down Windows. No pun intended.
Well, why didn't they do this to Netflix? I mean, look at Netflix. If you want to take a perfect example of someone who really had no competition in the market and you just let them do whatever they wanted, that was Netflix. Netflix then started getting competition, and it kind of still drove them all out of the market. Of course, we don't want 30 different streaming services, but do we really want 30 different consoles?
Yeah.
Yeah. But with this, if one console is obviously better than the other, why are we forcing the other one to still stay alive?
Well, and frustration...
Keep releasing something different, new.
My frustration here is the quote from that FTC bureau lady who says, and I'm going to replace the word Microsoft with Sony. Sony has already shown that it can and will withhold content from its gaming rivals. They both already do that with console exclusivity, which has been something going back... When did the NES come out? In 81? Or no, before that. You can go back before that. Find an old Atari system in the 70s. There's always been exclusive titles available on
most of those
platforms.
Were made by the game developers or the console developers studios like Atari.
Yeah.
And a lot of those didn't get shared to any other platform because they was like, why would you? This is something we made for our device to be able to play on our device so that you'll go out and buy our device. Like, what is it that's so confusing about that? And now it's like, oh, well, you can't just make something and, if you're not going to share it with all your competitors, well, how in the world does that make sense? I understand you want to have everybody have a chance, but Sony has not had great success with catering to their clients, to the people who buy their consoles. They've always not done well or made something. They're the worst about exclusives. If it worked with Sony, most of the time that means it didn't work with anybody else because they had their own game engine that they used and all this stuff. And Microsoft, they had at least working for PC and for Xbox most of the time. I would say that they were better about sharing it because you didn't have to buy it and use it on only one device, unlike Sony, who you're now trying to protect.
Now, there is some silver lining in this. The Federal Trade Commission decided to handle this in their own administrative court. So this is not filed in federal court, and they're not seeking a preliminary injunction, meaning they're not asking a judge to immediately stop the merger. So in all likelihood, the deal is the deal will close. The FTC is now going to essentially.
Cash.
Yeah, well, no, it's not going to be extra cash. The FTC is essentially going to blackmail Microsoft here into getting this deal done, and probably, make us some, make some political contributions. Just grease the skids a little bit, and we'll let you do.
Make a video game about, was it Dark Biden or whatever they call it?
Dark Brandon, yeah. Make a Dark Brandon.
Dark Brandon, yeah.
Make a Dark Brandon.
Yeah, can you make something that makes him look really cool? I mean, he needs to look really cool.
Yeah. So this is one hurdle. It's important to note, and Axios points out that you've got regulators in the EU and the UK that have looked at this as well. I assume the FTC will be I assume that the European Union will be the largest roadblock. They are the stupidest. They are the most unwilling and most illogical out of any of the organizations. The FTC is just looking for a couple of boxes to check and probably give their folks some things to do for the next couple months. but the EU could actually shut this down because they really don't give a shit. They are not they are not for consumers. They're not for anything. They're just for their big 3 martini lunches and big receptions with their private planes and whatnot over in parts of the European Union. So that's what they're all about. But hopefully this gets resolved in a relatively quick manner. I will note that when we covered this story nearly a year ago, when this first got announced, Microsoft did say, and Activision said, that you expect this to take about a year. So we're coming up on, I think it was February maybe that this was announced, or January. So we're coming up on that that time frame. So we'll continue to follow that and bring you updates as we get them. All
right, and I got an update from a story that we talked about last week.
Sure.
And pretty much Blizzard is still looking for a new Chinese publisher for World of Warcraft.
Oh, wow.
They lost the rights. Pretty much all of the games that were under the Blizzard umbrella were blocked in China. I had somebody I play hockey with, and they were saying, "Hey, all of a sudden, like all the Chinese players or all the Asian players like disappeared off of our game because he plays this mobile game." And he's like, "It's like they put a patch out and they blocked them." No, they lost their contract, and all these Asian players disappeared because they're no longer letting them put Blizzard games in China. So they're still looking for a way to keep that going because there is big money and things like that from things in China. Also, they have all these World of Warcraft things going on with the extent. They're pretty much the Burning Crusades and Lich King. All those things are popular over there to a certain degree. So we'll see if they actually get it. I'm fine if they don't. I don't think doing business over there is healthy for a company because it makes you do things, as I said in the beginning, that maybe you don't want to do. They make you concede.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I want to cover this really quick. We'll just run through this, Brian. The Game Awards was this past week. I will admit I didn't watch it. I just have been really busy leading up to Christmas. A couple things to pass along. Elden Ring won Game of the Year. It also won Best Game Direction. Here's one for you, though, Brian. Best Narrative and also Best Music, God of War Ragnarok, which happens to be an exclusive title, only available on the PlayStation.
Yes,
so I thought that
PS5,
was
PS4.
Rather interesting. It also won Best Audio Design and Best Performance. As Dusk Falls won Game for Impact. Final Fantasy XIV Online won Best Ongoing Game. Best Indie Game was Stray. Best debut indie game was Stray. Marvel Snap was the best mobile game. Final Fantasy had the best community support.
Stray is another one that's a PS5 exclusive.
Oh, really?
So
I didn't realize
that on mine.
Okay.
That is there's PS5 exclusive as well.
Yeah, there's Gran Turismo also won Best Sports or Racing Game. That's also an exclusive. There's a whole bunch of awards that they gave away.
The best VR game, AR game is also an exclusive. I mean, if you look, there's none on here other than the Nintendo has an exclusive, of course, on their Switch. But I don't see a single exclusive here that has
Microsoft.
Xbox in it that doesn't also have PS4, PS5.
Well, Brian,
the only exclusives they show are all PlayStation or Nintendo, the competitors.
Are you indicating that FTC Director of the Bureau of Competition, Holly Vendova, doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, Brian?
I mean, that might be the possibility. If you just look at the top games of the year, Microsoft is not holding a single one of those back as an exclusivity. The only ones holding their exclusives are purely Nintendo and PlayStation, which I would say that's unfair. Just saying.
I think Nintendo needs to be broken up. They're too big, Brian. They're too big with their 12-year-old console or whatever that they're selling with the Switch. So I didn't watch the Game Awards. I didn't hear a lot of fanfare. There was something. Apparently, Valve gave away like 100 Steam Decks or something like that on Twitch. I saw a little bit about but I didn't watch it. I will.
During the Elden Ring, I think it was, some kid went up there and started.
Oh, I did see that.
Kid went up to the stage or something like that.
Talking about Bill Clinton. He was talking.
Nice.
Talking about old Billy Boy.
And Epstein, or I didn't hear the speech.
I don't know if he referenced Epstein, but he was definitely talking about Bill Clinton. I don't know what the reference. Yeah, he went up there as all the game developers walked up on stage, and he walked up with the group, and then just walked up to the microphone and started talking, which is these things like this happen. It's not like the first time a fan has crashed an event or something like that. So that's the Game Awards. If you want to read through the whole list, we've got an article on our website. You'll find those in the show notes at infectionpodcast.com. Where do we go from here, Mr. Aldridge?
All right, well, let's talk about Epic here for a moment, because this is something that you see happen every once in a while. I felt this with World of Warcraft, but Fortnite is being sued, so Epic, in turn, is being sued for being too addictive. And so I think this is Canada, if I remember correctly, that is
wow.
that is doing this. I mean, it kind of sounds like what China was doing as well, as far as, saying all these video games, they're so unhealthy. But this class action lawsuit compares Fortnite to cocaine. And the lawsuit is actually being, as far as addiction. I mean, you're rocking up that Fortnite and really getting yourself hooked. But, they're comparing it, and the lawsuit is allowed to. It was originally filed in 2019, and they're going to allow it to proceed. A Quebec judge has authorized this class action, and so that means that they'll be able to push it forward.
Well, Brian, speaking as a non-expert in cocaine, but I would assume, like anything else, Fortnite and Epic, like every other game developer, every television director, every television producer, every movie director does make their game, their movie, their television show, hell, their music, Brian, something that people genuinely want and probably crave more of. And if that is now the
goal,
new definition,
to make it as entertaining as possible, binge-worthy, as they would say for television shows or movies.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example. I don't know if you've watched Yellowstone at all. My girlfriend and I have watched it. We love the show. Every week there's a new episode. That is
Have
addicting.
you watched the pre-show, the one that
1883? Yep,
or what?
We've watched that. And
you watched it. I thought that one was better than Yellowstone, personally. Not
that is very good. And then the new one with Harrison Ford, 1920 whatever, 12 or 23, comes out soon, next couple of weeks. But the goal of that is so that every week when a new episode comes out, Brian, I go, oh my gosh, hey, look, there's a new episode. Let's sit down and watch it. Yeah, borrow it.
For me, it's kind of Oak Island. It's like, because Oak Island's coming out tonight. Nothing ever happens with the show, but for some reason, you're always, something is going to happen. They have you hooked, much like cocaine, or you're just ready for the next episode.
Yeah, ready for the next episode, or ready for the next cut on the piece of glass, as I've seen in the mob movies. So I don't really know what the beef is here. Yeah, of course it's built to be addicting. Of course it's built for people to want to come back and play it more. If not, I mean, this is no different than literally anything else. And I find it, if you wanted to make an argument that this game is corrupting the youth or something like that, you could make that argument.
The China argument.
The China argument. If you want to make that argument, that to me is fine if you want to make it. But when I lose all respect and just laugh it off when you go, yeah, this drug that is actually really addicting, that's equivalent to this video game where you run around and do the floss and these other in-game dances. It's such a ridiculous example, Brian, that I just write the whole thing off as just stupid. And that's the problem with when you make an analogy like this. It just doesn't work. It loses all of its luster. Is Fortnite mentally doing things mentally to children to want them to play more and buy more and microtransaction things more? Absolutely. Is that a problem? I'd be open to the conversation about it, but not if you're going to say, well, it's the equivalent of Scarface snorting cocaine. It just doesn't work. It's just a stupid thing to even mention.
And listen to this, what they claim in the suit. They said the suit claims that Epic Games made use of experts, and that's in quotes, during the development of Fortnite to ensure that it would be maximally addictive to players and does not inform people of the risks and dangers associated with the use of Fortnite when they're creating their player profiles. It also accuses Epic of keeping kids hooked once they're in through the promise of prize and prestige, including the Fortnite World Cup, which offers more than $30 million in prize money. One player cited the lawsuit, who was 13 when the action was filed, had allegedly gone from playing a few hours a week to several hours a day in the course of just 2 years, and often plays until 1 a.m. Another who is only 10 argues with his parents about playing Fortnite and becomes very aggressive and vulgar while playing. This sounds like parenting issues. The 10-year-old has also spent almost $600 in Fortnite V-Bucks, although it's not clear whether this was done with or without the parental.
Well, hold on a second. How does a 10-year-old have $600 to spend on a credit card?
I know, all of these things they're listing are parenting issues. Parenting issues. I have 3 kids that love Fortnite, but guess what? All of them are grounded right now. Guess what they're not playing today? Fortnite. And guess what? They're happier for it. One thing I realize is they're all a lot nicer to each other, and they have a lot more fun when they're not allowed to play Fortnite. So guess what we do? And one of them, we've actually got to realize this. Hey, when you play Fortnite, you're less happy. When you don't play Fortnite, you seem to be a lot happier. So we're not letting you play Fortnite anymore. He's like, okay.
Brian, now you're trying to sound.
Fortnite anymore.
I feel like I'm being personally attacked now. You know, talking about you. I'm extrapolating Call of Duty out of Fortnite, and I will not confirm or deny whether it makes me very irate. But yeah, wow, playing a video game till 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, every teenage boy. I will admit,
kids go to bed at 8:30 on weekdays, 9:30 on weekends, and there's no question about that. It's not like I really need to play Fortnite. I don't care. You're going to be in bed.
When I was 13, when I was probably 12 or 13 years old, now you've got a swath of children from different
13,
ages. So,
12, 7.
Yeah, so it's a little so I assume it's a little bit different there. But so when I was like 13 or 14, this is what I would do on the weekends, Brian. I would stay up until 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes and play Modern Warfare 2 with my friends on a Friday or Saturday night. And I'd get yelled at by my father once off for screaming at 1:30 in the morning or whatever it was, or talking too loud. I just don't. Again, I don't know how you're going to say that this is. So would the equivalent? So with this logic, it's the equivalent if a 10-year-old is playing Fortnite at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's the equivalent to them snorting cocaine.
That's what they're claiming. That they're worried about what it's going to do to the child's brains. That's actually going to change the.
So then let me extrapolate this then, and I'm not trying to be a pompous a-hole. Brian, if your 10-year-old was snorting cocaine and you were aware of it, CPS in the United States would come and take your child from you. Child Protective Services would, and then you would be charged
for us allowing them to do that. Yes.
Yes, correct. So if that's the process for something like cocaine, which is a drug which you're comparing Fortnite to, why not the same thing? Why is CPS not coming and taking these kids away from these parents that are allowing them to play this video game that, for all intents and purposes, is a hardened drug?
Well, and that's the thing is, some of these people in the class action lawsuit are the parents. They're pretty much suing themselves for their parenting choices. It says the approval of the class action is only the beginning of the process, but it's a big step forward as the judge declared that the parents involved have a defensible case to make.
But it sounds like it's
the parents. Why are you suing a company because you can't tell your child no? That's what they're suing the company. I can't handle being a parent, and you being so good at what you do is making it really hard to be a parent. Could you please stop giving my child what they want so that I don't tell them no? It's like telling candy makers you can't make candy anymore because when I go to the store and I go to the aisle where I have to pay, there's all this candy lined up there, and suing them for that. Just because you can't handle saying no and the kid gets fat, is that the candy maker's fault? No, it's you for buying it for them.
I am making a statement right here on this program, and I'm going to stand by it. I am going to start a class action lawsuit, and I recommend all of our listeners to join me, against TJ Maxx and Marshalls for having a whole bunch of tchotchke bullshit in the checkout line, Brian. When I go up there with my T-shirt that I buy at deep discount, and I leave with a bunch of other crap that's in the line, that is their fault for allowing something like that, and it is not mine. This is such a retarded thing that I cannot believe we're talking about it.
And here's the kicker, because at the Epic, of course, sees the matter differently. It says we have industry-leading parental controls, which they do, that empower parents to supervise their child's digital experience The spokesperson says parents can receive playtime reports that track the amount of time their child plays each week and require parental permission before purchases are made so that they can make the decisions that are right for their family. We have also recently added a daily spending limit by default for players under the age of 13. Okay, you want to know who has horrible parental controls? Nintendo. Nintendo, if you put multiple people on one Nintendo Switch and you put a time limit on there, the parental time counts off against whoever's on it. My account ticks down the stupid parental control time limit. I can't play it without it taking away from the single timer that's across the whole device without disabling the timer altogether. Epic, of course, on theirs, they have excellent parental controls to where our kids can't chat with anybody. They can't log in whenever we tell them they can't log in. They can't play for more than 1 hour per day during the weekdays. We have it to where they can play 1 hour. They can't spend any money unless we pre-allow it. What are these parents claiming? Because you have the ability to control whether or not they play this, how they play it, when they play it, and obviously you're not stopping them. That's the only thing happening. Are you too weak to be able to handle putting up parental controls for your kids because you can't say no? You're willing to sue a company because you can't say no.
Yes.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Stupid. Only in Canada.
There you go. Only in Canada. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but I guess a story like this is, I think, the accurate kind of, if somebody was frozen in time in like the 1980s and you unfroze them today and show them this headline, it would be the perfect description of what living life is in 2022. Where parents are suing a game company over their inability to parent their child on a game that, from all accounts, has some of the industry-leading parental controls on, in comparison to games like Roblox, which has got none. The Nintendo Switch.
We don't allow them to play Roblox because you can't really limit what they do. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they have access to that I don't want them having access to, and I can't get down to the granular limit that I want, like I can with Fortnite. So that's one of the games they can play because I can say, hey, guess what? You have 1 hour Fortnite today. You have your whatever, if you want, they get to have one subscription, kind of like a game pass for something, or season pass for something. They generally pick Rocket League or they pick Fortnite. And so they get a certain amount of V-Bucks and they can earn going up the thing to get extra skins. But that limits to where, we're spending on Rocket League $15 every 3 months. Okay, that's not a problem. That's obviously not $600 this parent couldn't say no to.
I'm just wondering how it is the game's fault that a kid is spending $600 and the parent's not doing anything about it. Beat your kid's ass if they're spending $600.
Yeah, you couldn't handle putting a pin on your payment plan, your payment source.
How does your kid get the credit card in the first place?
Well, you probably have it saved in there, but you don't want to.
Saved in where?
If you're playing, no.
If you're playing it on your phone,
if you unlock it, they can buy it with a family payment option.
Oh, okay. Well,
so you add one family payment option that then applies to all your the other ones under your family account, and then they can buy. All I have to do is I just turn off, and they have to ask to buy. They can request to buy something, and I can go, nope.
Yeah, no. So, I guess this is apparently not a new lawsuit, as you mentioned. It goes back to 2019. We'll keep our eyes glued on this one, Brian. I'm sure we'll have a lot of hard-hitting information as this trial or this legal proceeding goes forward.
In the last week, though, Epic has announced a new child-friendly account type for online to make online play safer. They call it a cabined account, where it kind of limits different things for people that are under the age of 13. It kind of matching also, some countries have specific restrictions for digital content and consent. And so you'll either match your country's age of digital consent or this age of 13. Whichever
Industry
is
leader. Industry leader in this, by all
and these
counts.
are the people you're suing. Just because they have money is the only reason you're suing them, because they're making a lot of money. It has nothing to do. Go off some of the smaller fish and sue some of them, because there's a lot that are actually much worse than this.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. We'll keep a close eye on this saga over Epic and lack of parenting. Brian, you've got an interesting story here from one of our favorite media outlets, Kotaku, about a video game that brings us back to our roots, a zombie survival game known as Days Gone. What's going on here? Why are we talking about a game?
And I think this was a PlayStation exclusive, if I remember correctly, originally.
It was when it first came out. Yes, sir.
I mean, since that's something that happened. So there's a developer, or the director, had to put out a tweet. How about we read that tweet here really quick? I think it's since been deleted, but I wanted to just kind of read the original here. He says 3 reasons. As far as I'd have to see what the source of this. He was replying, I think, I will never expect to understand how this game didn't get universal praise from critics. One of the few times I've been utterly blown away because I was expecting an average experience based on the reviews. And this director then replied to this person who said that about Days Gone, said 3 reasons. 1, it had tech issues like bugs, streaming, and frame rate. It had reviewers who couldn't be bothered to actually play the game. And 3, it had woke reviewers who couldn't handle a gruff white biker looking at his date's behind.
Ass.
Say.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And so that was all. That's what he said in the tweet. And now the developer is distancing itself from former director. And they said, Ben Studio does not share his sentiment, nor does it reflect the view of our team. You had put a link into here to some of the reviews at launch of this.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because now this John Garvin guy has privated his account. It's like, you're going to make a claim and statement like that, either stand with it or shut up. I'm one of those people. Like, if you're going to say that, which, by the way, I agree with the statement, and we'll talk about it. But you can't, if you're going to make it, you can't then private your account and then run with your tail between your legs. You just look like a wimp. So I did some hard hitting Googling, and I found this article back from 2019, just after this game had come out, and there was a couple of reviews. And the headline on this article, again from 2019, is IGN and Kotaku, two of our best friends, writes complaints about Days Gone, quote, white protagonist. And now I'm going to read directly from the reviews. And this is when they had the chance to play the demo. So John Ryan wrote, quote, Days Gone makes some interesting choices that kept my play session engaging, and sections of its story that I experienced piqued my interest enough that I was legitimately frustrated that I couldn't continue playing at the end of the demo. That's a great review right there. That's not, Brian, I might even say that sounds addicting. While I'll admit that I initially rolled my eyes at yet another gruff white male protagonist, TM, in a grim world, especially one with such a gruff white male protagonist TM-y name, which is awful writing, by the way, as Deacon St. John, I ended up getting far more invested than I'd initially expected. I shouldn't be surprised, I suppose. This is a first-party Sony title, and Ben is no stranger to writing around well-developed characters. So, in claim here, especially one with a white man, which we know are the cause of all of our problems. The next up is Jason Schreier over at Kotaku. Schreier over at Kotaku saying, quote,
one of our favorite news sources.
Yes, one of our favorite news sources. And by the way, now works at the Wall Street Journal or something like that, and is just a complete pawn and hack for the Democrat Party in the gaming industry. He writes, quote, so that's the thing. I'm intrigued to see where the story's going, and the performances are really good. I like the main character a lot, even though he's this typical gruff AAA white dude biker. Now, let's be clear with this. These are not the worst reviews of all time. They could have been a lot worse. But it just goes to show you, and this is 2019, I'll mind you, a very different era of the internet in the grand scheme of things. Just goes to show you the setup, which is, so here's a game that we really like, and we have to bring in the fact, and we have to show, and for whatever reason, talk about the race of the main character. Now, as somebody that has not played Days Gone.
I
But
played the whole thing. I played it to completion. So
okay, so do they make is part of the game centered around the guy's race? Like, is that a plot line of the game?
no, and they have non-white characters throughout the game that you interact with. I mean, it's not like it's an all-white game. There's plenty of other characters and races and variations of people throughout the whole game. It's just your character happens to be a kind of a gruff white biker guy.
Yeah, so again, it's not like the developers intended there to be this storyline of, oh, look at he's a badass white guy driving around on his motorcycle. It doesn't there's no indication that that's the case. So as you mentioned in that tweet, the developer says, one of these issues was that the woke reviewers couldn't handle the white biker dude. And that's not just some outlandish opinion. That's literally in the reviews. Now, I will be the first one to admit that I don't think it's I'm not somebody, and I had a conversation today in an unrelated matter. I'm not a fan of, it's the media's fault for all of my woes and my problems. I don't think those two reviews sunk Days Gone. It overall received pretty good reviews, and as you mentioned, playing it seems like it was a great game.
Yeah, it was a fun game.
But it does highlight
and I think they
problem.
fixed a lot of the bugs. They fixed a lot of those bugs. So the first reason, tech issues, bugs, streaming frame rate, all that got corrected, and it made a much better playing experience. But a lot of this one came down to reviewers that just probably weren't willing to play enough of the game to get a good idea, because sometimes with a story like this, it takes a bit to get invested in the character to where you feel truly hooked. This is a game that has a long linear storyline that you have to follow, that over time gets you attached to the person, the characters. There's a love story in the background of that happened with someone who died because of the plague and all this. It goes through and gets you invested. And for someone playing for 1 hour, you might not get invested. So if you get someone who's just trying to write a quick story, they might not get enough of it to really understand how good the game is with their little bit of review time that they gave it. And then, then when you say, I'd rather to come up with content to write, start than writing about how the main character is white. I think that's what it really comes down to, is they're trying to shortcut their jobs. They don't have to put in as many hours and still get an article out.
Yeah, which is a problem. The game did sell nearly 8 million copies between its PlayStation 4 launch in 2019 and then its PC port, which came out in May of last year. So 8 million, I don't think is now. I look at 8 million, I think, wow, that's a success. Jeff Ross, one of the former directors, said it was a disappointment. Nevertheless, it goes to show the current status of this industry, and which is not new. I think you're seeing it more and more. The way in which this review was written in 2019, Brian, would be very different from how it would be written today. It was sprinkled in back in 2019 with these little comments. Now it is the full review, right? I would assume, and I think it's safe to say, that if Kotaku or IGN had to review this game today for the first time, they would make much more out of this guy's race and make it about, he's a rough and whatever biker white guy that's in the game. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that it's the reviewers' fault that the game didn't do well, but I will note that woke reviewers and these gaming industry outlets like Kotaku and IGN are a plague on the industry. I think that's a fair assessment to make. I hate to sound like a broken record, but we've sat here and gone through the Kotaku and IGN headlines before on this show, and they're just hardly anything to do with the actual gaming and what people are wanting to hear about. It's a whole bunch of hyper-political nonsense. So that's unfortunate. And now what? The studio is now distancing themselves from this guy?
Well, and he left the company in 2019.
Okay, so right after the game.
How are they distancing themselves from him even further? He hasn't worked there in 3 years, right? Yeah, and they're distancing themselves from him.
Yeah.
It's pretty silly.
Yeah, their comment says, we are aware of the comments made by our previous creative director on Days Gone regarding his personal view on the critical reception of our intellectual property. What a stupid statement. Bend Studios does not share his sentiment, nor does it reflect the views of our team. Our studio is immensely proud of the work that we accomplished with Days Gone, and are thankful to every developer who poured their heart and soul.
He never said he wasn't proud of it, right?
We are incredibly humbled, Brian, by the support of our Days Gone community, and we will continue to share your enthusiasm for our world and our characters as we look towards the future. So,
and they never said anything negative about the players. He only said something about reviewers and reviewers. Players were kind of pushed off a little bit by the bugs, right? That was the first statement, but that's not a bash on the players. And the second one was the reviewers didn't give it a fair shake. That's pretty much all he said in those two statements. The reviewers didn't give it a fair shake, and they're all saying, well, we support our players. Well, what's that have to do with any of his statement? We're proud of what we made. Okay, what's that have to do with his statement? He never said he wasn't proud of what he made. That there was bugs in it. Okay, well, so you're saying you were proud of the bugs you had in the beginning? Like, what are you saying about his statement that wasn't true?
Yeah,
he was saying the reviewers didn't give us a fair shake. Now they're saying a statement that has nothing to do with that concept.
Well, and what I find frustrating though is that this guy couldn't stand with his statement. Yeah, he deleted his tweet and then privated his account. Yeah. And it's frustrating that's the I agree with the statement. I support a statement, and we have to keep coming back to John Gibson, the former head of Tripwire Interactive. We have to keep coming back to him. Yep. So we have to look at a guy that did stand up and has now been his career's essentially been kind of reinvigorated in some aspects because of that. So that's great. Yeah.
All right, we don't have a lot of time. Do you mind if we talk quickly? I'm trying to think of what might be good.
We got about 15 minutes. So
okay, good. Well, yeah, I want to talk really quickly. There was a game that got announced. I got to find it in our thing. Where is it? There was a game that was announced that was based on 90s television stars. I have another link to it, and let me put it in there, and then we'll see if we can find it in the show notes. I'll put it on. Oh, actually, here it is, the bottom one. This bizarre new GTA Online looking 90s game. Did you see some of this? It's got a lot of real actors that are, characters
Danny
in
Glover.
The game.
Yeah,
Danny Glover. It looks very interesting. Will you be able to play that video? It's got a trailer here.
Yeah, I'm not going to
play some sound.
I'm going to play.
If you don't think
I'll keep the sound low. But yes, this is.
It's a PvE shooter. Which has a lot of just interesting, kind of like a Payday, I guess a Payday 2 style gameplay.
Yep, Payday 2. It's got kind of your 90s Scarface crime mafioso Cuban
Kim
crime
Basinger. Damien Portier. It's got a lot of Danny Trejo, who's in a lot of like B movies. Yeah, Danny Glover.
Danny Glover, the man as the glove. Michael Rooker. Yeah, who was in some recent shows. Vanilla Ice, who I haven't seen for a long time. And who is the other? They had Chuck Norris is in. Yeah.
Chuck Norris, yes, and then Chuck Norris as Chuck Norris probably.
So it's called the game, which, by the way, just looking at this image, is for all intents and purposes GTA. I mean, it's the same kind of Vice City pastel style, Miami Vice looking thing. This is a 505 game, which is a very well-known studio. They worked on some of the later Halo projects. It's called Crime Boss. This looks sick, and I hadn't heard about this until this week.
I think it just got announced at the game show or whatever, and
that would make sense.
Nobody saw it coming.
Game Awards,
yeah, I think they did. I think they announced it for the first time at the Game Awards, and this is something that you hadn't. I didn't see any hint of this game anywhere, and it looks like it's going to be. Who knows? It might be very much a story, because if you look at Payday 2, there's people who replay it a lot, but you're playing the same type of gameplay over and over and over again.
The same missions. Yeah.
This one, Yeah, same type of missions. This one looks like it has a story to it, but I'm wondering if it's a story that kind of takes you through the first time of robbing all these banks or doing whatever you're doing, and then after that you can do online play where you just play the same maps over and over again. But it looks cool. The graphics look great. I think it's an Unreal Engine 5 project that they're doing, but it definitely it's in conjunction with Epic Games as well. So it's got to be an Unreal Engine 5 game. So it'll be March 28th that it's going to be. It's a PC exclusive via the Epic Games Store.
This game?
Yes. Yeah, it'll launch on PC exclusively via the Epic Games Store March 28th, 2023.
I'm only challenging you because this was
no. It says Xbox there, but that's what I think they're launching it with a console version to follow later in the year.
Oh, I see.
So they're launching initially on PC, probably because they have that ready first. I bet you it comes down to all of the having to get everything passed through the gold certification process and all that. So I guess they're launching probably as soon as they can on PC, and then later once they get everything passed and cleared via Xbox, then they'll be releasing it on the Xbox console.
Yeah. This will be a good test of Epic Games Store, because this will be a game that people are going. This will be a great barometer as to what folks are are people ready for the next GTA? I think the general consensus is they absolutely are. Depending on how well this game sells, which just again looks like GTA, is not. And Brian, I want to come back to one of my old favorite adages. Manage your expectations. If you are expecting GTA 6 out of this game, let me tell you what, you are going to be disappointed. Manage your expectations, ladies and gentlemen.
I was expecting a GTA 5
that was their fault,
size of game.
But that was their fault.
That's because I felt like that's what they promised me. Like everything I saw was promising me a GTA 5 size map, in-depth story. I wanted to be able to walk into these businesses and see all this cool AI and all this stuff happening in the city, and then you get there and it's like there's all these robotic things. Cyberpunk doesn't mean that they're robotic. They're not robots. They just have cybernetics, and it seems like they got that backwards because their AI was horrible. Everything just was a mess. Yeah, of course they have fixed some of that since. So that's I thought that was interesting. It looks like it'll be fun pretty soon. 3-4 months. It'll be out.
Exactly. So when that comes out, Brian, I'm sure I'm not gonna speak for you. I'll be sure to purchase it, and I'm sure we'll give it a shot. Definitely.
Get some online gameplay going here.
Yeah, that's very cool. Let's see, Brian. Speaking of phenomenal news outlets, and I will say this before heads up, I don't like when people lose their job. I've been in situations where jobs have fallen apart, and it's a scary situation. So not making light of that at all. However, IGN has laid off some of their staffers. They did this week, and while that's unfortunate, and while that is I hate that that's the case, this is not surprising. You are looking at an outlet that is becoming increasingly less relevant because they have strayed away from what folks are actively looking for. Now, I'll note that IGN isn't anywhere near as bad as sites like Kotaku are. But for whatever reason, when IGN redid their website a couple months ago, I almost can't go to it anymore. It is their new UI on the website is awful. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of white space. You can hardly find anything on their website. But we have seen this kind of downward trend in the video game journalism industry. According to Ziff Davis, who works there, is high up executive there, says that these cuts are across content engineering and ad sales as part of a larger restructuring of the project and of the platform IGN. So I do like this, though. The Kotaku goes on. It's ghastly that people are losing their jobs literally weeks before the winter holidays. They can't even say Christmas because they're so woke. But even from a cold business standpoint, it seems odd to lay off staff right before one of the biggest industry events of the year. Covering the Game Awards is already a Herculean task, and I imagine that it's much harder shortly after a newsroom loses multiple colleagues. So first of all, People get laid off all the time, no matter the time of the year. Yes, it definitely sucks to lose your job around the holidays, I would imagine. So that there's some legitimacy there. That I don't think you don't not lay off staff because there's a big event going on. If you have to restructure and you have to cut costs, you have to do it any way that you can. It's just Kotaku's description of this is just ridiculous. Digital media has always been an unstable industry, but record inflation and economic uncertainty likely haven't helped the matter. At no point in this at all do they reference that maybe we're in the wrong and maybe we're not actually reading or covering the interest of our readers and our audience. Maybe that's why they're leaving. They even talk about how G4 essentially laid off everybody, how Polygon laid off a bunch of people earlier this year. Folks, you guys are the common denominator. It's your shitty coverage of everything that is the common denominator in this. That's it.
Yeah, and one thing that they mention in here is there's been a number of layoffs in media. They talk about Polygon was among the Vox Media properties that had layoffs this summer. G4, we talked about that a number of weeks ago. September 14th, they had dozens of jobs cut there. Tencent fired several Fanbyte employees, which is, is a media outlet for them. This is something where they are becoming less relevant, and I don't think they realize, because we went to PAX for a number of years, got to go back into the media room and really see how they talked and what they were doing, and they just didn't seem very down to earth people. That when they'd write their articles, it had very little to do with what was actually happening on the ground at the convention center. It was just a bunch of woke things that for me, I just don't have an interest in reading. And I think we're starting to get people that are getting tired of it. And I think if anything, from, for instance, this Twitter kind of thing that's being unrolled and being shown to public, all the Twitter files, I think if anything, you're starting to see that a lot of these things were being falsely propped up. A lot of these articles were being falsely amplified. And when you start to take away that false amplification of all of these topics, they're going to be hurting even more, because those files showed that there were things that were being made relevant that weren't relevant, and that were very relevant that were being silenced. And I think that these are part of that cog in that wheel of companies that are trying to silence things that they find disagreeable and amplify things that are fake. And you kind of deserve to be let go if that's what you're doing. And if you're not doing that and you're getting let go, that's sad. But I think a lot of these companies were pushing a very far agenda that only a max of 50% of the viewer base or of the country are going to agree with. Their potential clients. How about you start getting more to the middle and offering them entertainment based on actual video games and technology and things that you were founded on? That's what they should do.
And it's just so amazing that even in their description of layoffs, they seem to completely miss the mark. And Brian, one of the biggest problems in this industry that I've seen, and we're gonna, a little tease here, we're going to have a lot more coming up on this in the new year, is that their inability to self-reflect. And this is not just a video game journalism problem. This is a general media problem where you've got
entertainment industry problem.
Yes. And even in the news industry as well, this inability to look at something and say, maybe I missed the mark on that. And Brian, without sounding like I'm, riding in on my horse on this, that's one of the things I pride myself in my day job, is that it doesn't happen often because I'm so great at what I do, but there are situations where I'll do a story or cover something, and after a couple days, more information leads out, and it's like, you know what? Maybe that just was maybe I just didn't do this thing justice. And what do? Well, I'll go back and not correct the record, because it's not bad information. It's just, hey, there's this more information that comes out, and maybe it's led down a different path. You're able to reflect on things that you've done and then say, maybe I was wrong about this. Maybe I had this preconceived notion based on an assumption I made because of lack of information. I made that and based an argument off of it. Well, now that new evidence has come out or new information is, hey, dude, new information's come to light. I've now got a different opinion on it, or my opinion has shifted a little bit.
Yep.
That doesn't make me bad at what I do. That doesn't take away my legitimacy. If anything, it builds my legitimacy. It shows, hey, this guy's willing to say, hey, I was wrong about this. It's different now. These people are in the media industry are so unable to do that. It's astonishing. Yeah. It's astonishing how they can't do it.
And I've had similar instances on this show, on this podcast, where halfway through my argument, I realize I'm kind of off base on what I'm thinking. Like when I seriously think about it, hear a little bit of a counter argument, and I've changed my opinion halfway through of agreeing with whatever it was I was analyzing, right? And I think that that's something as a journalist, or someone who analyzes topics, you should be willing to do that. But I think that the type of people they brought into these organizations and these companies are activists.
Yes.
And to them, this is a religion. And if you're going to try to convince somebody to change perspectives that are part of their religion, that's one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. And so rather than bringing in, because I try to explain to one of our boys what a scientist is supposed to do is always be looking for something to disprove what you believe. That's what a scientist is supposed to do. And any scientist who says, well, this is 100%, it's impossible that anything else, that's not really a scientist. And no. Because I mean, even look with the James Webb Telescope, the whole Big Bang theory is being questioned now, and gravity, some of Einstein's theories get questioned, where you'll ask some people and they say, well, that's 100% fact. Well, I think a lot of these things is they're so hell-bent on just proving their point that they're not investigating anything. If anything gets counter, we see how many times something gets put in their face to disprove what they're saying, and they'll just try to pivot. They'll pivot the argument to not focus on that anymore, so they can then whine and cry about something else. And I think that this is what we have to get rid of, are these activists in this type of an industry.
My favorite headline, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I'll put a synopsis on it. It was in surrounding the Elon Musk files, and the headline was from some ridiculous news outlet: the Twitter files, everything we already knew about Twitter. And it was like,
you mean everything that they denied?
Yeah, you mean everything that they told Congress and that told their shareholders or their investors that there wasn't shadow banning and there wasn't this censoring. We didn't know about this, but it's an immediate CYA, cover your ass, and just completely deflect, Brian. And I'll give the media credit for this. If you just ignore something or just say that it's not true enough, it eventually becomes true. I mean, honest to God, that's how it works, and they have mastered that. That's
actually a quote from one of the heads of propaganda for the Nazis. I'm trying to remember what his name was, but that he said that if you say a lie often enough, it's something like if you say a lie often enough, it becomes the truth.
Yeah, and that's exactly
like the mantra of the Democratic Party or the left. They keep saying the lie over and over again, just like all these lies about COVID that are now they're starting to see, or these lies about things that happened that, they got banned. Look at all the people they banned. And then when you see the logs in the background, well, they knew it wasn't true, but we're going to say the lie. We're going to push the lie as long as we stay consistent. Oh, wait, somebody bought our company and now they have access to all our secret talks behind. Oh, we all knew that the whole time. That's no secret. There's nobody lied to you because everybody knew that, right? Even though they said this, they all knew the truth. That's the argument. And it's one of the stupidest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, private companies can do whatever they want.
Old Man Center says, well, but that's only in certain ways. That's not true. That's not true. Not if you're a baker. President.
Not if you're a baker and you hold on a second though. Private companies can't do whatever they want if they don't want to bake a cake or if they don't want to. Then private companies not allowed to do what they want. It's only in certain instances they can do whatever they want. Yeah. So that's and with this, is a very weak argument. In my
with this, the issue came when the FBI approached them, or the White House approached them to then silence. That's when it went from a private company to the government then getting someone's first, their rights actually suppressed. That's when it crossed the line. A private company could do this all day, but when the government steps in and is initiating that you're going to ban this person, you're going to ban that person, that's where they cross the line. And
and it's also important to note on Twitter's, from the old Twitter, that it was a publicly traded company, meaning that you had people investing in a platform and spending money
now
buying
it's a private
stock.
company. It wasn't then.
Yes, under the idea of the things that they claimed that shadow banning and those things weren't actually happening. They all, in fact, were. So there's a lot of stuff there. All right, Brian, we are out of time. Is there anything else that we need to highlight before we get out of here today?
Nope. We got some other things that we'll cover here in the next couple of weeks. But if you want to catch me, yep.
Oh, before you do that, do you want to tease what's coming up on our Christmas show here in a couple of weeks?
Well, one thing that we've been discussing is possibly talking a little bit about AI, right, and some of its impacts, and also some about mobile gaming and how that's affecting the industry. And but the one I'm really excited about is the AI. So if you have any things that you want us to maybe discuss or review before we do that off-air show that we're going to record and then put out over Christmas,
27th.
Make sure. On the 27th, make sure that you send us a link. Put it in the news channel. Perhaps there's something that you think that we're not going to see that's relevant to those topics. Post it in there, and we'll take a look at that and put it in our show notes as something to keep in mind. So, we love it when we viewers give input into what we talk about, and these are ones where what we're going to talk about before we do it, so it's the perfect time. If you want to find me, you can get me at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, and Truth Social, or at Boise Computer on Twitter. You can check out my blog, biteoftech.com. Of course, if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, you can join our Discord server there, where we have that news channel. You can post links into there. We also have 11 ARC servers running that you can play over the holidays, and we've got a Conan Exile server running on there as well. If you want to listen or watch the show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, and those are live and after the fact. Also, we have the podcast, which once the show is done, we upload to that. A lot of different devices, platforms that you can listen to the show using. And if you are going to listen to the show, that means that we'll have the show notes for that particular episode. And so if you click on that, we got a video and audio player built into that page, and then links for everything that we refer to throughout the live show. So perhaps there's a video that you wanted to see even though you were listening. Just click onto there, and you'll be able to check out the video or maybe some of the source material that we reference to be able to verify some of the things that we're saying. If you want to support us, there's a support option up top, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Brian. As always, greatly appreciated. And we will catch up with you next Tuesday for our final live episode of, I guess, of the year. And then we'll be back the Christmas show on the 27th. And then we'll be back on January the 3rd. And we're working on a lot of new stuff for the Brian. I'm going to come out. Here's a prediction for your black book. 2023 is the year of Infection Podcast. I'm not saying what that is. I'm not divulging any information. I'm just saying if there was ever a prediction to make, that would be it. Brian, thanks as always. We'll catch up with you. We'll catch up with you next week. Folks, if you want to check me out on Twitter, I'm not verified. I will not pay for that. I've been talking about on this program for years about how I don't do loot boxes and microtransactions. I'm not going to start with Twitter. You can follow me at Nicholas M. Craig. Check out my daily political antics at nickcraig.com. If you missed any portion of the show today, I encourage you to head on over to our website and check out our show notes. Infectionpodcast.com is the website. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.